Traffic Jam is on now.
Hey, how you doing? It's Kenny Williams here. And we're here with Traffic Jam, and I'm here with a comedy comrade, a friend, man, you know, from Showtime at the Apollo, Def Comedy Jam. The list could go on. It's my man, Rudy Rush. What's up there, brother?
What's up, Kenny Williams? What's popping? Hey, you forgot to mention you can also catch me at the welfare office and unemployment. I am gainfully unemployed right now. That check is kind of nice coming through. Hopefully, we get some more stimulus. What's up? What's up, brother?
You know, so we boys, so we're gonna have a different type of
yeah.
It's so crazy. In our I never. It's so funny. I never really knew this. So I'm gonna ask this question. The name Rudy Rush, did you get that with comedy or that was before comedy?
You know what? That's a funny question because a lot of people don't know where the rush comes from. They think,
that's a good question.
It's a great question. No, you have a lot of great questions, by the way. we should have a show called Great Questions with Kenny Williams. No. How it happened was the funniest thing, Kenny. When I was younger, I used to play basketball. I'm from Harlem, New York, and so you know, with having a background in basketball in the city, the weirdest thing either you was a hustler, a fighter in the street, or if you play basketball, you got street cred.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So at a young age, I was really good at basketball. And so what I used to do was, you know, I would play with the older cats. And how I got the name Rudy Rush was they would be like, yo, Shorty, after the game, they'd be like, yo, Shorty, you can play. What's your name? I'm like, Rudy. They'd be like, Rudy Rush. They like tagged it, like, Rudy Rush, go get us something to drink. They give me a couple of dollars. I go to the store, get something to drink. So the name kind of stuck. So I never used it other than writing the name in my notebook at school and stuff like that. You know, you tag your name in your notebook and everything like that. So I'll be like, Rudy Rush. And then once I start doing comedy, my real last name is McCallum.
Mm-hmm.
So every night they would bring me to the stage. The first month of me being in comedy at the New York Comedy Club, they would be like, give it up for Rudy McCallum. And I was just like, that shit don't sound right. My father, you know, who is now passed away, but he was like, well, why don't you call yourself Rudy Mack? And it was Bernie Mac already, so I couldn't really take, you know, Rudy Mac out, you know, because hyphenate the McCallum or whatever. But I was like, Rudy Rush. That was my name. That was my low, you know, alter ego name from playing basketball. So I was like, and the name just stuck. Even if you never saw me before, they'd be like, yo, we just saw Martin Lawrence. We saw Tracy Morgan, Rudy Rush. Like it just fit. And so it always kind of, that's how the name, a lot of people haven't asked me that question before, but yeah, that's how it came about.
Wow. It's so we've been knowing each other for years. So it sounds like a name, like that could be a last name, but I know you talk like it's always
it happens all the time. Then people will hit me up and they be like, yo, you know the Rushes from South Carolina? I'm like, or a chick be like this, I'm gonna take you to court because this baby is yours. I'm like, good luck catching Rudy Rush. No, I ain't never had that. But no, I tell people quick, fast. You want to write me a check that I need to cash right now? Put McCallum on that, please.
Okay. So let's get to it doesn't really, but it was like your beginning as far as entertainment. You would probably say the biggest thing that as far as Showtime at the Apollo. Let me ask you this: if you had been from Brooklyn or the Bronx, do you think that you would have had Showtime at the Apollo?
Yes. And the only reason why I say that is because of how I got it. Now, being from Harlem and getting that and being in a place where I pretty much walked past, my parents snuck in there as kids to see people like the Jackson 5 and James Brown. It was a great situation. But if I lived in Queens or Brooklyn, or even if I lived in Chicago and lived in New York, I would have gotten it only because of my affiliation and the things I was willing to do prior to getting it. And when I say things I was willing to do, kids out there don't think that I compromised myself. Okay? Nobody been back there.
You're watching The Traffic Jam.
No, basically what I mean was at the time, Steve Harvey was the host, and a lot of comics in the city area, in the New York City metropolitan area, for some reason, I don't know if it was because they were hating on Steve or Steve wasn't easy to work with. My thing was, it was an opportunity where no one else kind of stepped up to the plate. I took advantage of a great situation. Instead of hosting or doing like the warm-ups on one night out of the 4 nights they were doing it, I did such a great job that it plateaued me. It just kind of propelled me into doing, I was the warm-up guy. And then Steve didn't want to go on tour to find the Apollo Kids. If anybody remembers, that was a major part of the show, the Apollo Kids. We discovered people like Jasmine Sullivan and others. And so with that, Steve didn't want to go on tour. Now, when I was young, I couldn't understand, like, why can't he want to be the host of the show? But it's a rigorous travel schedule, media, and all this other stuff. And for Steve and his, status at the time, I get it. But it opened the door for me. So I became the host of the Apollo Kids Tour, which then made McDonald's, American Airlines, all the major sponsors loved me. And then the producers of the show was like, well, this guy is a perfect person. And just gradually, once we take Steve out, put him in because he knows how the show runs. He's familiar with the kids. And that's how I became the host. So being from Harlem, it was just a cherry on top. But it wasn't really so much that I was from there and they wanted a kid from the city to do it. It wasn't about that.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're going to skip from Showtime at the Apollo. And then you go into radio. And let me say this. Why I'm saying this, it ain't just a jump. If you look at like a lot of guys from Ricky Smiley, a lot of comedians, Steve Harvey, D.L. Hughley, that are on radio, it's not an easy feat to stay that long and consistent.
Yeah.
First, well, tell us your introduction to radio and how would you on these #1 radio stations for so long? You've been out for 10 plus, 15 plus years. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what? And so, like, Kenny, like you said, we cool. So I'm going to keep it 100. Like the thing that in show business, you might have a regret here and there, but you tend to turn those regrets into just, part of your experience and your ride. I chose to do radio where a lot of those guys like Steve and DL, especially DL and Ricky, they were already famous. And then the opportunity, I would say Steve more had his hand in radio a little bit, but he just had a foot in. He was doing a lot of other projects. And then the radio situation, they all were famous when they took that leap to do radio, which made it a lot more easier for them because they had a platform. Me, I saw something different. I was really at the apex of about to start doing a lot of different things on the comedy thing. I was hosting the Apollo. I was on the Def Jam tour. But I said to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm going to forego doing the road stuff and everything. And I'm going to concentrate on the radio stuff that they weren't doing, meaning like, like learning a proper radio break. And this is not disrespectful to any of them. It's just like, when you're a comedian, your timing. Well, I was trying to learn comedy timing with radio, which would be, in my mind, in my opinion, it would be like a programmer's dream. Like, yo, this dude is funny. He can go on stage, but then he knows when to stop talking in these commercials that make us money, and we don't have to chop this and do that. But that was something that like I said, I don't have the regret, but I wish I would have waited for the fame to come and then sat back and said, yeah, let's do this radio thing. But I was touring with the Apollo. I was doing different interviews and stuff. And one company was like, you sound so good. And I was like, you know what? Fame is something I'm not chasing as far as, you know what I'm saying? Like the auditions and everything. I said, I can be a little bit anonymous, be on the radio, be funny, make this money. And that's the choice. That's the choice that I made. And it's and people were so, and I didn't think about this. People were so angry in radio land about Steve, about DL, about Ricky getting this money that they weren't receiving. You know what I mean? Just imagine this, just real quick. Just imagine you're in Chicago and Steve is doing afternoons. Just say he's doing afternoons and he's making $1 million a year just from doing afternoons in Chicago alone, not syndicated, but just in Chicago. Then he leaves. And now they call you and they're like, hey, Kenny, why don't you come and fill in and be the new afternoon guy? In your mind, you're like, Steve was there. He made $1 million. I'll take half of that. I'll take a third of it. And they'd be like, we got 80 grand.
Wow.
And there starts the hatred and so when someone like myself who comes along and they were like this, oh, we're gonna make him jump through hoops, or we're gonna make him work hard, or we, you know what I'm saying, you're a comic, and they've seen me on television working stages and everything, but the respect level was just never ever really, they never took advantage of having someone like me in the house, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you started with your first introduction as far as radio was with Doug.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, actually, it was Joe Soto, this guy out of Chicago. It was in Dallas, and I worked there a couple of times. And then I worked after that. They called me back to work with Cheryl Underwood. That was crazy. That was crazy, but it was fun. Me and Cheryl had a bumpy, tumultuous little ride, but it was cool because we're cool friends now. We're great friends now. We look back on that situation like that was crazy. But, you know, sometimes you just can't put two comics in the same pit. And they tried to do that. It worked for a minute, but the first time that there was a bump in the road, it just kind of went crazy after that. But Cheryl and I love Cheryl. She's a great person. And so that was the second. But then at the same time, Doug was in the same city and he had a major show at the time. And they had Ricky Smiley on the show. And Ricky Smiley was on his way out the show, leaving the show. So they called me and I filled in for Ricky and it went really well. I wound up being on that show for 8.5 years.
Wow.
You're watching The Traffic Jam.
So I'm gonna ask you because we so we don't lose time, and we comedy comrades, but we have different perspectives. And I remember asking this cat, and I hate to put like Batman and Robin, but who do you feel is the GOAT of comedy?
Oh,
you've been doing it a long time.
No,
and who do you feel now? We could say the Richard Pryor, but let's say now, our GOAT now. Who do you feel is the GOAT of comedy?
So I'm gonna say this, and it's funny because it's a good question. Because when people talk about Michael Jordan, some of his contemporaries, people who played against him, who people think they hating on him, they like, nah, I played with him, and I'm telling you, the dude was great, but he wasn't the GOAT. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna say that in respect to my good friend Dave Chappelle. He gets a lot of those accolades, and the dude is hilarious. I would love to see Dave Chappelle for an hour in a lecture hall because he's so brilliant. He's so funny. You know what I'm saying? And so, but at the same time, I can never take away the impact, because that's what Jordan is. The impact of Jordan was, which makes him the GOAT. It's not so much the statistics and all those other things. It's the impact that Jordan had on the league. It's similar to Eddie Murphy. Eddie Murphy did great in everything. He did SNL and was a star. He went and did movies and was a star. Stand-up specials was a star. Songs, commercials, major movies. Like no one still to this day with Kevin Hart and everybody and Dave Chappelle, you could put them all together. Not one person has compiled the body of work this man has done. So to me, Eddie Murphy's the GOAT.
Okay, I'm gonna say this, and I get a lot of flack for this. And I say this because I love Eddie Murphy. One of my favorite Eddie Murphy films is not The Usual Suspect, is Norbit, for whatever reason, right?
It was good. It was funny.
Yo, I love Norbit, but I say GOAT of comedy, but I said not the GOAT of stand-up. And hear me out. He hasn't done stand-up comedy in probably 20 years, right? So how can you put him in that consideration as far as stand-up comedy? So once again, I'm not hating. This
No. This will be my argument to you.
Okay.
What's your favorite stand-up special?
And you know what's crazy? It's Raw.
There you go. When you put out a body of work, and he put out that and Delirious, and I don't think Delirious was as funny as Raw, but they both were big billing, monumental. If Raw is number one, Delirious is number 5 all time. It doesn't fall far. And so what I'm saying is, if Raw is the best for you, when you got that, you don't have to keep doing specials. These other dudes are putting out 20 specials, but not one of them are touching Raw. That's what makes him the GOAT.
No, so here we are. And people go, well, you just answered your question. No, what I'm saying, as we all know, comedy has evolved.
Yeah.
Like, if Eddie was to come back and do stand up today, it would be a whole different ball game. And I think the only reason we were saying that because of the name. But
Yeah.
as we all had to learn and evolve with
Mm-hmm.
internet comedians and this and that, comedy is different now. It's still the basis of what it is, but that's what I'm saying. Like the long gap.
No, so I like that argument, and I always say this. I used to think that way about Jordan, and I keep going back to the Jordan argument, and I'm sorry, but this is the deal. Eddie Murphy was great because he just had to be. He was just so great at the time, and Mike too. But when the only other person who was athletically similar to someone like Jordan was maybe you go down a few levels to Dominique Wilkins. You know what I'm saying? No one was physically imposing, doing those things until you started seeing the Tracy McGrady's. And then you saw Kobe. Everybody was built like Jordan, athletic like Jordan, doing Jordan things. Can you imagine if Jordan had to go against 10 of them dudes every night?
Mm-hmm.
People are saying that. But this is the thing. Jordan's mentality would make him he would be even scarier. He would be I think he would conform. And I think Eddie Murphy, if given today's tools and regulations and everything, he would be even better, if it's possible, than these comics out here tonight.
You're watching The Traffic Jam.
I just seen this special about Suge Knight, right? So Biggie popped in my head. Listen, we'll talk. That's a story for us, but I'm not even going there. Because Tupac and Biggie, it's always going to come up. If Biggie Smalls didn't sign with Bad Boys and signed with Def Jam, would hip hop be different for Biggie?
It would be, but it's almost like Jay-Z. I don't think without that period of Dame Dash being in the forefront of his career, he would not have gotten to the levels as far as the exposure. You need that other dude. You need that distraction. And Def Jam didn't offer that for Biggie. Biggie would have been a man in a sea of stars where Diddy was in. I mean, you could see even till today, he's affecting the culture as it moves forward. And so to have that distraction and have you as the major centerpiece that he's using to move it, we would have seen Biggie in a different light. Maybe he still would have been a great lyricist, still considered one of the best, but I don't know if he would have had the attention that would have come with the mind of Diddy and how he would have presented, because he presented Biggie like nothing else ever presented, because Diddy had that vision. You needed that vision. Dame had that vision for Jay-Z. So I would say, no, he wouldn't. If he stayed at Def Jam, he'd be alive, but he'd be like, can you help me? I need some money because it's I'm broke, baby. Oh, broke right now. No, but so Biggie would still been great. But you know, like you got to think of the production and all that stuff that you know, like even with Juicy, he didn't want to do that. Biggie was like, "Yo, man, I'm going on the block with this bullshit." Diddy was like, "Nah, this shit's gonna be dope." Like he needed Diddy, man. Diddy was. People sleep. I don't know why, but people sleep on Diddy.
Yeah. Let me ask you, and this is one of the things we often talk about as far as, and this is part of, you've always been this cat that, and we talked about, like you go to, when you go out of town, you hit the gym in the morning, like you working out, like some guys just can't jump into work. Have you always been like in the gym? Like, has that always been part of your routine, or you had to like, once you got into celebrity, like, yo, I'm gonna stay in shape because I don't want to,
No, let me tell you. So naturally, physically, from playing basketball, if in the thing that sometimes I like having these conversations with you, Kenny, because you play ball. So basketball, if you got a decent physique or you got some good genes in you, if you run up and down the court at least 3 to 4 times a week, you can always stay in shape. So in my early 20s, that's all I really did. It took me having a knee surgery at 30 to walk into a physical gym and lift a weight during my therapy that was the first time I ever did it. And so I learned different tactics and techniques and things of that nature to kind of keep my body in shape. Then I started having kids. I had a daughter at the age of 33. I got another one at the age of 43. Now I'm like this. I got to have at least one good swing in me for these young motherfuckers. So it became like this person that you want your daughters to see. And so, yeah, so working out for me now, especially in, since 2020 with COVID and everything, it really helps me stay focused. I've gone through some transitions with work and stuff like that. I'm no longer on the radio doing projects with yourself. You know what I'm saying? So it keeps me balanced. And now I turned it into a lifestyle. So now working out for me, and I don't lift no weights. I go in there and do a lot of cardio and stuff like that. And my body kind of just, so yeah. But early on, back in the day, we used to be in the Boston. When it was summertime, it was packed in there. Truth be told, in that back staircase, I would do like 1,000 push-ups before I came on stage. And I'd be up there. How y'all doing? Chicks used to be like, yeah, you look all swollen. I'm like, yeah.
You're watching The Traffic Jam.
Cardio. So let's talk about what is considered to be cardio. Pretty much cardio is just anything that is rhythmical in nature and that can be sustained for a period of time. So that means that cardio can be your weight training program if you're doing a circuit training. It could be jumping rope, it could be dancing, it can be running, swimming, playing tennis, playing a sport. All of those things constitute as cardio. In fact, if I just sat here and raised my knees and moved my arm, because it's rhythmical in nature, it is cardio. I just have to do it for a certain amount of time and elevate my heart rate to a certain level. So let's say that your heart rate resting is around 71. You start moving in this rhythmical pattern. It gets your heart rate to above 100. That counts as cardio. So cardio is really not as complex as people make it seem. There are many different ways to get in your cardio. Now, in terms of the best forms of cardio, it depends on your goal. So if you want to have a more toned look, if you're looking to build muscle, then doing long bouts of cardio is not going to be your best friend, because you're going to start to actually use muscle as fuel sometimes in certain cases, but it does inhibit your ability to put on muscle. So you're better off in terms of cardio doing interval training, doing sprints, things that are more explosive and powerful. So instead of going for that 1 hour jog, if you're trying to put on muscle or to have more muscle tone, instead you would do maybe 5 sprints up a hill for 20 seconds and be done. Now, in terms of if you are trying to have a more lean build, you're not really concerned with building muscle, then you can go ahead and do those more longer endurance exercises. So think about body types. Look at a marathon runner versus a sprinter. A sprinter has more muscle mass, whereas a marathon runner is more lean, right? It really just depends on your goal, what it is that you're trying to achieve in terms of your look. So definitely you want to consider both of those factors when figuring out what type of cardio is best for you. I know a lot of times for women, we become cardio queens, where we think if we just get on that cardio equipment, we do 30 to 45 minutes, we will lose weight and have that ideal shape that you might be looking for, but that is not the most effective way to get to your goal. If you actually focus on doing more weight training and doing that in a way to where you are still getting a more higher intensity of cardio, you'll actually build more muscle, which will help you to have a faster metabolism and lose weight faster than if you were to just go and do 45 minutes of moderate cardio on a machine. So that's just a fun fact. Definitely consider using weight training as a way to get your cardio in. Again, doing circuits of weight training where you're doing supersets or sets of 4 exercises can still help you to achieve those cardio health goals while still building muscle, building muscle tone, and helping you to lose more fat and more weight. Hope that helps.
You're watching The Traffic Jam.
But yeah, working out for me personally is more mental than anything else. It just keeps me like, it makes me feel like I've accomplished something for the day. Like, so everything else I'm doing is all a part of like, I did something. So I try to make it a part of every day.
Okay. Hey, brother, man, thank you for your time. Thank you for
the
sit down.
Well, the doctor came to get you.
He's like this. I need to off.
No, I appreciate it, man. I always want to, do stuff like this and, work on projects because, you're doing a lot of stuff, Kenny. So I'm setting you up to borrow some money in the future. That's all this is. Remember everything you did. Look, everything you did, I agreed to do it. I did an interview. Can I get 10,000?
I'm gonna tell you this: in 2020, when they go, what's the highlight of 2020? You're part of the highlight. Like,
hey, my man.
because of like this pandemic, some people could look at different things that went on, like my connection. Like, we've always been connected, but now it's like you would never thought like we'd be doing business and connecting and doing interviews and podcasts and stuff like that.
Brother. I never thought I'd be on the phone with some chicks. She'd be like, "What, you and Kenny, y'all went out to lunch today?" But I don't see that nigga like that. Speaking to Kenny every day. Look, like we a package deal. Like, look, somebody come over and she'd be like, "Kenny ain't here." No, Kenny ain't here.
But that speaks volumes because somewhere you don't have that chemistry, or you, especially with business, especially being where we at this level of comedy, that can easily bump cats. So I appreciate it, man, and thank you for your time, brother.
I appreciate you back, man. Yeah, man. Good luck with the show, man. Shouts out to everybody out there, MB Media and everything, and you guys got a great platform here. So good luck with it, man.
You are watching The Traffic Jam.